Is that the light I'm looking at, man?
Yes, it's on.
Being 7 o'clock, I'll call to order the meeting of the Board of Selectmen of Clinton for Wednesday, October 20th. First item on the agenda is public comment. Is there any public comment? Please just state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, yes, Jillian O'Malley, 245 Greeley Street. I was just coming to check about the estimate for the sidewalks on Greeley Street.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, it's on the agenda. That's number 4.
Oh, it's on the agenda?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Well,
All right.
yep. Stay tuned.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Hearing none, we have minutes for October 6, 2021 for review and approval. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept the minutes of October 6, 2021.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you. Sorry, don't have my glasses on. Mr. Lipka is here. We'd like to welcome Steve Lipka from the Board of Health for an update on our COVID-19 struggle. And sorry, Mr. Vonsi. We have to stop meeting like this.
Yeah, really. Good evening. Tom's going to give you a quick rundown of where we're at right now, and then we'll go from there.
As of 9 o'clock this morning, we had 1,856 total for the town. Our nurses watching 39, and we have 1,817 that have been completed. Recently, we had within the last 2 weeks, a spike. A week and a half ago, 10 days ago, we had 20. So now we're doubled. So it's something that our nurse is constantly trying to keep on top of.
So from what we're gathering, I mean, it's hard to figure out because we've had the old home day, and as far as we know, we got no new cases out of that. And then, some public gatherings and family gatherings, and we're getting a couple, 2, 3. But when we reach out to the other communities around us, the same thing's happening. But we think with the cold weather coming, people moving indoors, we're probably going to be like this, peaks and valleys for a while, until the booster comes out and they have a vaccine for kids on the way. The dilemma we have is after the first of the year, CDC is no longer going to be doing any contact tracing, so that's all going to fall on us. So one of the reasons we're here tonight, other than give you an update, is to request some COVID money. Our nurse is already working 7 days a week again. A couple hours during the week and a couple hours on the weekend right now, but once the first of the year comes, we don't know what to expect.
Any idea what we're talking about as far as dollars? Dollars?
Oh, I think the last time we did, what, 10,000? I mean, it was probably 10,000. I don't foresee us going through that. That was to do a lot of the spot checks and on the businesses and things of that nature early on. I don't think we'll be doing that yet. But just to cover the nurse, if we have to bring in an additional nurse to help out like we did last year, that's probably where the money will go.
Michael, can you remind me where we got that? Was that
Well, we'd have a couple different ways. One is FEMA would cover reimbursement for personnel, but also there's still CARES money that has to be used by December. So this would certainly be a good use for either one of those categories. The state it was very narrow on the CARES money of what you could use it for, and the state's kind of really clamping down on that. So if it's not eligible under that, it will certainly be eligible under FEMA. So.
Okay. Can we do a motion to approve the funding without a source, and we can sort that out, or do we have to be specific?
Yeah, no, if we just say we could use COVID funding,
Okay.
whatever available COVID funding, yeah.
Great. It's something I'd support. I would entertain a motion if the board is willing.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we supply necessary funds to the Clinton Board of Health.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? So we'll say up to $10,000 for now?
Okay, great, thank you.
All's in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. So are we getting close to anything like a mask mandate for businesses? I mean, at what point do we start looking at that stuff? I mean, I go through a bunch of towns to get to work, and every town seems to be a little different, but it seems like it's leaning more and more that way. I don't want to be squashing anything, but what are they saying in the public health circles?
So, towns are taking different approaches. Some towns are just coming out and saying, across the board, full-out mask mandate. Other towns that we're kind of following are letting the businesses make their call. Right now, the supermarkets are having their employees wear masks, like dollar stores of that nature. I don't know about the pharmacies, but they are mandating it for all employees, and they review it every 2 weeks. We took the approach that we'll look at this every month and follow the numbers like we have in the past and make a decision based on whatever the science is or whatever our cases are. But we're definitely reaching out and contacting, Fitchburg, Leominster, Gardner, and how they're doing things, and they seem to be doing the same thing that we're doing. Let the businesses decide how to best run their business, and if something does happen, we'll handle it accordingly.
They're kind of doing the governor's order.
Yeah, I mean, we've been following governor's orders.
Yep.
We haven't gotten anything yet. That's kind of how we'd like to do it. We did it in the past and it worked.
Yep.
But, if, we wanted to get a joint committee and some of us sit down and kind of talk this through. We don't want to make all these decisions all on our own, but I think the more people we get involved, the better off we're going to be. So I'm more than willing to sit down and listen to what anyone has to say, what their ideas are. It's just hard to figure out what's causing some of these spikes when, like I said, we went through the old home day, and as far as we know, we got nothing out of it. And there were probably 1,000 people in Central Park.
And I know you guys don't get in the weeds this much, but is there any indication from where you get results, whether it's like a full-blown hospital case or someone who's vaccinated and they're just sick case?
Our nurse,
Yeah,
our public health nurse gets that information. We don't get the names, just the nurse, and when she talks to them on the phone, she relates all that information. Have you been vaccinated? She does all the tracing from top to bottom, so it's...
all that information is entered into the Maven system. It's a statewide database and goes to epidemiology, and then they track it and play with the numbers and try to figure out where it's all coming from.
Right.
But it's we don't have access to it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, I look at a number every morning, like how many new cases, and like are these cases like people are getting sick and dying, or, I'm just trying to get people to get vaccinated, to be honest with you, because, I'd rather, it's either out or you're fouling off a pitch here, I think, like, to use a terrible metaphor, like, I don't want, if you're getting sick, I'd rather you just get a cold and move on. It's hard for me to sort through these cases, and I know they all count. I just want to make sure that people understand. I just see the numbers, and I just wasn't sure if you guys had any indication of how bad things are in town. We're about 75% vaccinated. Is that
Close
still right?
to that. Yeah.
Close to that,
But it's holding steady. It seems like we've kind of got everybody we're going to get.
Well, they're going to start with the kids
Yeah,
coming up
okay.
really soon.
All right.
Booster shots, they just, news today, they approved the Moderna and Johnson & Johnson. Plus, they said you can mix the shots.
Mix and match, yep.
So it's, we're just waiting for them to deliberate to run a clinic and
Great.
see what, so they're going to actually do both, Steve, right? They're going to do, anybody who wants the 2 shots or anybody who wants the booster shot, what's the date you got that?
It's in early November. Deb has got it set up.
Okay.
Hoping for Moderna to come for the seniors, and probably try and do them all in one day.
Great.
So that's the plan right now. But, one of the things we're not sure about is the state slowed way down on their testing. So we're not finding out right away when someone tests positive. It's 3-4 days down the road, and you're not doing any testing over the weekend. So we started Monday at 21 cases, and we're up to 39.
Yeah.
So whatever happened last Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I mean, we're getting it all at once. So I think that's kind of skewing the numbers a little bit. It's not as consistent as it was last time.
Yeah.
So you knew you were getting 1 or 2. I think we ended up getting like 10 on Monday and probably 4 and 5 yesterday and today. So it's just hard to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that and the home testing, people are being tested and they say, oh, gee, I'm positive. They don't pass it on. They're just
Okay.
going to wait the 10 days. And, you know, that school will be asking, why isn't this kid in school? Well, it's not, if it doesn't show up in Maven, we have no idea that they're positive. But if the nurse calls and says, oh, am I keeping my son home because he's positive, we have no record of it.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Well, I'll open it up to the board. Questions, comments?
I just have a quick question.
Yep.
The vaccination rate, you said 75% of the people approximately were vaccinated in Clinton. Are they, are those of the eligible people to be vaccinated, or does that include the children under 12 too?
It's probably not many children. It's, what is it, 12 and older
12
right
and
now?
older.
12 and
Yeah,
older.
So it's
So 75% of people 12 and older in
Yeah.
Clinton.
Yeah.
We have about a 75%.
But mostly from 40 and over, the numbers are higher. The 40 and under is where it's dragging us down a little bit.
Gotcha.
All right, well, hang in there. We're here if you need us, and yeah, let's keep, I know the school started pool testing this week.
Yep.
So if we see anything jump there, we can figure out an in-between meeting to talk about actions, but otherwise, yeah, we'll keep in touch for our next meeting in a couple weeks and see
All right.
where we are there.
Sounds like a plan.
You know where to find me. Good luck, guys.
thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
At our last meeting, we talked about a question of sidewalks along the side of Greeley Street, as discussed at the last meeting. The DPW superintendent submitted a price quote, which came out at $185,120.10 from the project manager of the company who's been doing road construction in Clinton. In an email, he said that the price seemed high, and another option would be to bid the project for additional quotes. So at this point, I will open it up to the board. We can take action, we can defer action, we can put it out to bid. It's obvious, I don't think it's going to happen this construction season, so we have a little bit of time if that's something the board was looking to move forward with, but I will open it up now for discussion or not.
Mr. Chair, I've been thinking about this a lot. I'm sympathetic to the request, but the more thought that I give it, I'm just not so sure that this is the appropriate venue to make a decision like this. My thought is that this might be something that would be more appropriate for town meeting, and I would speak in favor of the request at town meeting, and anyone else that feels similar, I would encourage them to do so as well. But I think a request like this, because everyone has sidewalks and a lot of people would probably like sidewalks, and I am sympathetic to some of the, to the request, and I do think that sidewalks would look good up there. The hospital is up there. It's an important part of the town. I do appreciate the concern of the traffic and ambulances going down the street and having there only be a sidewalk on one side. But I'm not sure if this board, I just would feel more comfortable if this was something that was handled at town meeting with representation from the town to share their thoughts, opinions, and concerns one way or the other. So that's just my thought on the matter.
Any other thoughts or motion, or how do you want to proceed?
Sure. So I agree with Selectman Devault on it. I would request that Mr. McGowan does get a couple more bids on it to see where that number lines up at. And then if it, you know, if it does end up going to town meeting, then there's a better idea of the cost itself.
So how do we want to proceed? Do we want to ask the DPW superintendent to get some bids and
Yeah.
defer? There is a petition, do we have enough to get on the next town meeting special or annual warrant?
Oh, sure.
Okay, I mean, there are enough signatures to get on the next warrant?
Yeah, I mean, for annual, they just need 10, so there was,
Oh, okay.
there was
All right.
more than that, yeah.
Okay, so the petition plays no matter what. Do we want him to just do that now or in time for the, I mean, I guess if we don't anticipate a special, but it could always pop up. So, I mean, does that make any sense to get an estimate now if we're not going to be voting until June, or would that
I think
hold?
it would- Yeah, I think it would take some time to get the estimates. I think
Okay.
it would be good to go forward with it, to get the prices, and
Yeah.
and then you're ready whenever you need it. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a motion? To put it to bid?
Oh, yeah, I'll make a motion that we put the Greeley Street sidewalk project to bid.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, 5-0. And I think that's all we need to do now, Michael?
Right.
Okay. So the petition is considered filed, they've put it in with us, they don't have to do anything else?
No, if as long as you're accepting that, and it's up to the selectmen too, to...
Once
you
we
know,
approve the warrant.
Put any warrant article on, so yep, so as long as you accept that, we can
Right.
go forward.
Yeah, and so you understand that the history of the board since I've been here is that we don't deny citizens petitions.
Right.
So, unless there's a drastic change in our philosophy, I expect that to be on the next town meeting warrant.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I would just request that we do have that bidding information in time for budget preparation, so that way, if it does get approved, it's accounted for.
Yes. Okay. We'll make a note of that.
Sure, yep.
Make sure it's done.
So when would be the next meeting for that? Not in the town meeting?
The next meeting for that would be, I guess it depends, I mean, assuming there's no special town meeting, it would be our preparation for the June annual. So, we usually set the warrant for that, is that 60 days out?
Yeah, usually around March, April, yeah, usually deadline is March, April, yeah.
Yeah. And again, in the 4 years I've been on the board, we've never turned down a citizen's petition. We don't necessarily support them, but if someone does the work, we let them bring it to the people. So, you know, we can let you know. We do the budget process in the early spring. We finalize the warrant sometime in April. But if you want to ping us in March and just see what's up, and if there's, you know, if something comes up in the meantime, if there's something we have to vote on, we could slide that into a special time meeting sooner. So it's just I don't think we'd call a special time meeting for a citizen's petition.
Right. Because I think, as the chair indicated, they're wrapping up construction for the season right now anyway, so it
Right.
wouldn't have been done till next year anyway. So whether it's spring or summer, if it goes to spring town meeting, the work can be done in the summer if it gets approved, so.
Was there an actual estimate, though? I think I missed that part.
185,000 and change. 185, yep. And he was estimating 85 last meeting, if I remember correctly. Anything else on this? Moving on, we've made it a point of emphasis this fiscal year to bring in department heads to give us regular updates on how things are going. We'd like to welcome our new police chief, Brian Coyne, to catch us up on the first few months of his tenure and to answer a few questions related to the police department. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. I don't have a formal report, but I do have some bullet points that I'd like to go over with you.
Terrific.
Thank you.
No, we've been giving you time to warm up. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
just make sure you speak into the mic. Sometimes it's a little wonky.
Absolutely. Thank you. And again, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here and to share what we have going on so far in my first 3 months on the job in my new role.
Has Chief Lavager cleaned out the office yet or no?
Yes, we've actually, we painted it after he left. We ordered new furniture, and that's on the list. We're making some upgrades. First thing I want to talk about is my transition into the role. I think everything's going well. I had a staff meeting. First time in my 24 years, we got all the staff, all the officers together in one place. Kind of talked about my vision and what I anticipate, my expectations going forward. And it was a chance to let the officers, and I told them, open it up, provide me with some feedback, with some ideas, and if they didn't do it in that venue, to take it and bring it back to me. And I did. I got some ideas from there, and I hope that opened a dialogue to get the officers included on some of the things we got going on. I also met with the supervisors, met with the detectives, union reps real quickly, got a good relationship there. We had a dispatcher meeting, met with the crisis intervention team, talked about some of the things we got going on, going forward with that. So, met with several town and community groups, and that went really well. That's something that I'm going to continue to do, expand upon, reach out, take and make any opportunities to speak and listen with the community. That's absolutely all what I'm about, and that's what I think my primary role as a police chief is listen to the community, what their needs are, and set our agenda based on what the community, what the town, what the board here, what the expectations are, what you guys think we need to do in town. Some of the stuff that I have and I had big visions about and I spoke about in my interview for the job, some of it's a little bit on pause because we're still waiting on, and I'll talk about, we're still waiting on some of the promotion processes with the lieutenants and sergeants. Some of the things I had envisioned and starting my plan and everything, I kind of got to wait to see who's in place so I can delegate some of those tasks and form a team and work with people. But we're on the fast track working with Mr. Ward. We interviewed some lieutenants. We interviewed all the candidates for lieutenant just this Monday. I clarified the roles. We talked about what my expectations of the roles of the 2 lieutenant positions. As you know, we've traditionally had 1 lieutenant in the department. We're expanding to 2, which is going to be totally new. And we're going to break up the roles into an operations lieutenant, which would deal with more of the patrol side, more of the uniform, and then an administrative lieutenant. And the administrative lieutenant's role, and I talked about updating and getting in the accreditation process with our policies, how to make our policies to match the highest level of policies and best practices in the profession and in the Commonwealth. So that's going to be a big job for the administrative lieutenant, of course, working with me and working with the other lieutenant as a team with the entire department. I talked about that at the staff meeting too, to form a committee for the policy development. So it's not only the chief making policies and setting it down, talking about maybe a patrol officer, a sergeant, and a lieutenant, and involving the union throughout the whole process. So everybody has input, everybody knows why these policies are being developed and implemented. A lot of them now with the new post commission in place, a lot of them are being kind of mandated, and we're just kind of cutting and pasting some of the wording on some of the policies there. So I think officers understand that. But I think some of the officers are excited about that, the opportunity to be involved in some things like this. And that goes for any decision. Policies are going to be one of the most important things. But anything we do at the department, I'd like the officers to be involved and have some input. And then everybody knows, the guy in the night shift knows what's going on. The chief isn't just putting down an order. So the people on the committee can kind of take that information back, and everybody knows where we're going and why we're going there. So, like I said, we had the lieutenant interviews on Monday. We have sergeant interviews coming up this Wednesday, and we have 5 candidates for that. And again, work with Mr. Ward and come up with some decisions after he reviews all the packet and the information that they submitted, and after the interview process. Our 3 newest officers are out of the FTO program as of a few weeks ago. They're assigned alone on their shifts now, and they're ready to go. They're doing a great job. They did a great job with the FTO program, and the officers that were working with them, that supervise them in that program. That's something that I helped develop, but the officers really took it upon themselves after I kind of came up and said, this is something we should do in the department, and that FTO program has really grown. So our newest officers coming in are really getting a lot of training and a lot of input from the officers, where in the past an officer would kind of start. You'd ride around with somebody for a while and then you'd be on your own. But I think the FTO program, it matches one of the national standards of the FTO program. Officer Cornelius, who works with it, he actually, the MPTC was asking for people that are FTO officers, and I asked him if he wanted to go, and he actually is involved with some input, because they're going to develop, Post is going to have some input on the FTO programs going forward. So that was good that he got involved with that too. So that'd be statewide.
Just for the people watching at home, can you tell them what FTO stands for?
Oh, I'm sorry, Field Training Officer.
Great.
Yeah. And what it is, it's a 12-week program. They switch, they do 4 weeks on each shift, or 4 rotations on each shift, and they ride with an officer, so they're supervised. I'm sorry, I should have brought more information on that.
No.
They're graded on their performance, and sometimes they're not graded too well, but they learn from that and they correct it, and the officer will allow them to handle a call, handle a car stop, and they'll only step in if there's a major safety issue or something like that. So it gives them a solid 3 months of being supervised by an officer, and every time they switch a shift, they go to a different officer. So the other officer may see something that officer didn't see, and something that's corrective. And they work together. The FTO officers meet and talk about what they've seen and what the officer's improvement is. Maybe it's some issues with the car stop. He wasn't doing something safely, and it's been corrected since, and they work together on that. So our 3 officers are out and about and doing a great job, as far as I know so far.
Great.
We also have 2 new hires. We had the list from HRD is Human Resource Division, Civil Service. They came over and signed the list. Monday was the last day to sign. I just gave it to Mr. Ward in his office, so we'll proceed with that now. And we're shooting for, there's an academy in Reading in January. That's very aggressive, because we have background checks and interviews and physical aptitude tests and psychological tests and medical testing. So I don't know if we're going to hit that date. That's what we're shooting for, and hopefully we can. If not, we're probably looking sometime in the spring to add those 2 new officers. The Post Commission.
Sorry, Chief, how does that bring you up as far as staffing?
One position was budgeted in the budget, and one position is to replace Rick Welch. So that'll bring us up to where we should be. Yeah.
The position was for the extra lieutenant spot, so somebody in the ranks will move up into that, which would open up a patrol position.
Thank you.
Backfill. Yeah. The Post Commission, we're still trying to learn a lot about the Post Commission. It was, I'm down in training, it's chiefs in service training down in Norwood yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and I had the fortunate they had Post Commission members there, as well as the executive director, who's newly appointed to the Post Commission, and they opened it up to questions. Chiefs throughout the state were asking questions, and a lot of the answers are, we don't know. So they're literally working without an office, without a website, without a phone. They set up a mass.gov email address to send things down, so they're really in the infancy. The legislation kind of got ahead of where they're at, so they're trying to catch up. So as soon as that's in place fully, we'll be in compliance with any of the mandates, any of the changes that are coming down. We've already changed some policies, our use of force policy to match October 1st was the deadline. We had our policy to match the state guidelines for use of force in July. So we changed all that, and again, it's cut and paste, because a lot of the use of force is now mandated by law. So it always was mandated by court decision and best practices and everything anyways. So there are a few things to adjust: duty to intervene, chokeholds. There's some new language that we had to put in there to match what the Post Commission wants us to be following for the guidelines. Officer certification, we'll have to maintain records of training and everything to make sure that's all sent down to the post commission, any report submissions, and that's going to be one of the duties of the administrative lieutenant as well. Like I said, it was great to listen to the post commission. There was a retired judge that was there and a couple other members. There's also a member that's a police chief out in Pittsfield. He's a member of the board, and the executive director, I think, has only been on the job 3 or 4 weeks. But he was very informative, and they answered as best they could. They answered what they could, but there's still a lot of information about what post and what they really want. Guidelines says there's going to be some issues on body-worn camera coming down. There's going to be a lot of decisions that they're still talking about. And we're still waiting on that to see where we go as a police department, to see what post is going to do and what the state is going to do. There's some of the body-worn cameras, I don't want to, I got a whole list, but the storage, the fees, they've been talking about regionalizing some of the storage, some of the fees, some grant money for that. So that's things we're waiting on. We're looking at ourselves now, starting to look at, and like I said, when the lieutenants and everybody are in place, that's something we'll go full steam ahead and really take a look at. Cruisers, unfortunately, we had a cruiser accident on Friday. It was not the officer's fault, and most important, nobody was hurt. Somebody was driving that shouldn't have been driving, and they pulled out of a street they shouldn't have pulled out on. So we're still awaiting the analysis. Hopefully it's not major, and it's undrivable, but hopefully it's nothing that the cruiser is going to have to be replaced. Okay. We do have a new cruiser. It's over in the lot. It's got white doors, but that's it. We're waiting. There's kind of a back order on some parts, but we're waiting for equipment installation, radios, the cage in the back, things of that sort. And we're starting with our first hybrid, our Ford SUV hybrid cruiser. There's some surrounding towns, neighboring towns have tried them. The Mass State Police are using them, and I read up on it. And any car that wants to be a police cruiser, Chevy, Ford, whoever, they submit them to the Michigan State Police, and they do testing on it, and they've actually tested very well. In some areas, they tested better than the all-gasoline cruisers.
Do you have a charger at the station? How do you charge that up?
It's hybrid, so there's no charging. So it is gas, and then it switches over. Yeah.
Shows what I know. Thank you.
Yeah. We have another one on hold for January. We're going to see when we get this one up and running, how we like it, but at least that commits to it. We do a cruiser every year, and then every third year we do 2 cruisers, and that's been working out because it keeps a well-maintained. It actually saves money in the long run. Because we've skipped years, and you can tell. Cruisers are in the shop, cruisers are out of service, and then we start getting larger bills coming in. So hopefully the hybrid and the SUV, it works out. We have the SUVs now, and the officers really like them. They're four-wheel drive too. They're safe. They're good vehicles. So that's where we're at. Hopefully we don't lose one with the accident. Building maintenance, working a lot with Mr. Farragher and the facilities. Trying to do some things. We painted some offices since I became chief. We painted the dispatch center over. Once they seen some offices painted, they thought it'd be great to paint the wall in the dispatch center and get rid of a color that was good in probably 1985, but they maybe needed a little updating. So we did that, and I'm working with him. What I want to do too, and he's got some estimates. I want to update the training room at the department, which is in the lower level. It's kind of been neglected. I really want to start utilizing that room more, and I've talked to the sergeants who are present. I really want to start doing some training on our own. Like I always say, I don't think all the training is going to a course for 8 hours. There's a lot of training that can be done by just watching a video or just going over, reading a law, having the shift supervisor come in and reading a law update or a case that just came down from the Supreme Court. And I want to make that a training room that people come in and take the training seriously, a room that's up to the level that it should be for professional police officers. Mm-hmm. So he's helped me with that. We have some quotes on some flooring, and some walls need to be done, and some things like that. Ordered some furniture for the lieutenant's office. Now that we're going to have 2, we're going to do that. We got some new training room chairs coming that we ordered. We're getting a new camera in the interview room. We've had problems with this camera for a long time. And we're mandated by law that any interview that we have for a person that's in custody, has to be at least audio recorded, and the courts really, they say at least, but they really want it video and audio recorded. And the system that we have is working. It's an up-to-date system. We just always had a lot of problems. I think we were a small fish for this vendor to put it in. They do a camera system for the whole city of Lowell, so when I call about our one camera not working too well, it takes a while sometimes. So we got somebody else coming in that's willing to put in a scaled-down version that what we need, and hopefully that'll be well. We're working with the camera upgrades throughout the station too. That'll also, and this was something we were working on with the other facilities director before he left, to have a view of the fire station and the dispatch center, so that we can see if someone, when they're out on a call and the fire station is empty or they're resting, that we can have a view on that. They would still have all the recording equipment down there, but the dispatchers would be able to view if somebody was lurking around there or doing something they weren't supposed to. And that was something that Russ was working on, and now Brian's going to work on, and we talked to the camera guys about that. So we're just assessing the building needs. The building's 25 years old. There are some needs, and maybe I'll be coming to you guys asking for some money in the next year or so, and maybe the next budget, if there's some money, we can do some extra things. Storage is a huge issue in that building, but we definitely could use a coat of paint on a few areas around and do some things with that, but that's something for another day. We're doing the best we can right now, doing some small things to make some upgrades to the building. Training, we're currently completing our annual firearms qualifications. We had guys go last week. I think there's another group going this week. I've been in training, so I'm going to have to go by myself with the training instructors and go out there and get that done. We do it we do 4 hours, our qualification in the fall, and we do a class over the winter time, and we do a training class in the spring. Over the winter, we've done in the past, we didn't do last year, is we do active killer training in the schools, and that's gone over well. SRO Sylvester works on that with the firearms instructors, Al Bedard and Kyle Grady, and they do a good job, and every year we've been kind of expanding it. We want to include the fire department, we want to include the dispatchers more, to make it, because an incident that hopefully we'll never see, but we'll be prepared for, and it'll be a town-wide response, so we should be training that way. So we're going to do that. That's our 16-hour minimum obligation to train for in the firearms, and I'm talking with the firearms instructor to do a little more. I'd like to do a little more scenario-based stuff, shoot, don't shoot, and de-escalation stuff, because you don't just want to go out and shoot at targets. We want some live situations. And there's some equipment out there that I was looking at, and I'll get down looking at grants and stuff. There's some virtual training and stuff, and a lot of the chiefs are talking about regionalizing it because it is expensive equipment. Some larger departments have it. We have an officer, somebody who lives in town I went to police academy with. They have a beautiful system. He works at MIT Police Department. Unfortunately, it's in Cambridge, so it'd be difficult to get our officers down there, but it's quite a system the way he describes it. And I'm not expecting that now you do the virtual reality, you just put the goggles on. And there's a lot of new technology and systems out there, and I think that'd be great for the officers. But that's something down the road that we're looking at, and how would we afford something like that. I put down this year's training. What we have every year, we do an annual week-long MPTC is the Municipal Police Training Committee, and this is every year they change up what they do for training. They try to recognize the needs in policing at that time and try to tailor the training to those needs and to current events and to things going on. Every year we get legal updates. Every year we get CPR training and use of force. This year they're doing use of force de-escalation, human trafficking, mass gatherings, cultural competency. And if you notice on the bottom, and I think this is great too, all the training's great. But they really are concentrating on officer wellness this year too. Mental wellness, critical incident stress management, and suicide prevention. I don't know if you guys see in the news and stuff, and I think it's been a tough year for police officers throughout the country, and the suicide rate and things going on. are really affecting the well-being of some officers throughout the country. So I think the MPTC recognizes that. We talked a lot about it at the Chiefs Conference this week too, and how we can do that. And I've always been a proponent of that. We've implemented a peer support program a few years back, and I'd like to expand. I talked to the Officer Cornelius, again, is involved with that. I'd like to expand upon that. We have the officer with the fitness. I just talked to him a few weeks ago about doing more with that. We have the gym available to help relieve stress, and there's other programs out there, and I know we can do a lot more, and I'd like to expand upon that, and definitely like to do a lot more to make sure the officers are fit for duty mentally, emotionally, and physically, and ready to go. I think if they are, they'll treat the public better, they'll communicate with the public better, and they'll respond better. So that's one of the focuses for FPTC this year, which is great, along with all the other classes. So I just put that down there. Our mental health first aid training, we have in-house. Officer O'Toole's going to do that. I want to do that first thing in the fall, but we also need to get our firearms training done. So he's ready to go. He has some materials he needed to order. Those all came in. So as soon as we get the firearms and everything done, he'll be ready to go with that. I didn't mention, in the years past, we've gone to Boylston to do our in-service training. We're, over the last couple of years, even before the pandemic, the MPTC was putting out, it's called the Acadius Portal, and it's a training portal, and from what I'm told, it's the Cadillac of training portals. So everybody has a login, and you go in there, and all the classes are online. So what we do is we schedule the officers to be off a shift to complete that training. It was nice to go to Boylston because you get that interaction. It's nice to interact with officers from other departments and kind of find out what's going on with them. But we're where we're at right now, and virtual is good in a lot of ways where you can do it anytime and we can kind of schedule around it. But that's where we're at. And it is a good format. It is a good program, software system that they have. I'm sure it costs the state a lot of money and well worth it. But that's where we're at with that, and the officers will be, so we can schedule them throughout the year. They'll be scheduled after this, right through the winter time. We'll get everybody scheduled up and get their hours. We do the CPR training in-house. Acting Lieutenant Nelson and Detective Schmidt are CPR instructors. We do the taser. We do that over the winter too as well. We do that in-house, and that's annual training as well. So we get all that done in one day. We do the CPR in the morning and the taser in the afternoon. So that's all coming up. Mental health first aid, I'm excited to get that done and get all the officers and the dispatchers as well. And then we're going to have a lot of training coming up for the new lieutenants and new sergeants. Internal affairs, that both lieutenants will be in charge of the internal affairs function as far as taking complaints from citizens, and any follow-up, any reporting, any investigations. So they'll be going to training to be certified in that. There's the MPTC, again, has supervisor and leadership classes for newly appointed sergeants and lieutenants, and we'll be following up with that. I just went on Friday in Grafton, the suicide prevention. By law, any police officer that's promoted, every rank, you have to go to suicide prevention, and that's not dealing with officers or staff, that's with people in custody. So it's a suicide prevention class. So that was my 4th time attending. But you have to attend and it's good, things change, case law changes, and it's always a good refresher to know how important it is. And I think we do a good job with that, recognizing any needs and making sure that everybody is safe and healthy back there, and if there aren't any complaints, we bring them up to the hospital or do whatever we need to do with that. We also, I don't have it on here, but we signed a memorandum of understanding, which a lot of police departments in the area with the sheriff's department. They opened up a regional lockup this year, and we haven't utilized it yet, but they'd be able to take, if we arrested somebody on a Friday, they would be able to take them and house them for the weekend. Okay. And there's certain restrictions on that where they have to be medically cleared, and there's certain things that they just don't take anybody, but once we bring them there, they have healthcare services, mental health services, and it's only temporary, but if people have any issues there, they're the professionals who do this all the time. They're fully staffed, and it would take a lot of liability and take a lot of issues away from us here. and it's something that I want to start moving forward with when we get everybody in place. And I talked to some other departments, and they have some good input with the program and getting people there. And like I said, you just need to meet certain criteria. You can't bring, but we do that anyways. We make sure we don't put anybody in the cell till they're medically cleared, or if they have an injury that they're complaining about, or that we have a responsibility to identify. We make sure they get the help that they need before anybody goes in a cell. But that would certainly help us, because manpower-wise too, to watch somebody for a whole weekend or a couple days is sometimes taxing on our resources. Sure. So that's good. Of course, we're going to always have an ongoing assessment of training needs, individual needs that officers, that sergeants or officers recognizes. Sometimes officers come and request training that they see. I always encourage that. I love training. I like attending training, and I like making sure the officers are getting all the training that they can. And if the officer ever came to me and said, I'd like to go to this class, I'd make sure I do everything I can to make sure it happens. So, and sometimes sergeants, or we recognize, hey, maybe this training would be good for this officer, and recognize some needs that way. So we're always looking at that. And like I said, we'd like to implement some stuff right in-house and utilize our training room. Not everything has to be, you don't need to get a certificate and go to 8 hours of training all the time. Sometimes just doing some stuff in-house and keeping guys fresh and keeping guys thinking and talking about certain topics is a good thing. So, the dispatch center. We have a new dispatch supervisor. I interviewed him as lieutenant, and he came on the job. He came in the door, and I was the chief. So Dan Walsh, he's doing an excellent job. He had 18 years experience in Belmont, and he's really hit the ground running. I was joking with Mr. Ward the other day. I think if he keeps up this pace, he won't have anything to do in 6 months. He's getting everything done right as soon as he got here. He's doing a great job. He's really working with the grants, with the training. He's got a lot of great ideas that he's coming in with. He's got a lot of fresh ideas, and I think the staff appreciates him too. He's really bringing a lot to it. The staff is great over there. We're really, really good with the dispatchers we have right now. And for the first time in a long time, we're fully staffed. It seems like every time we get somebody goes and becomes a police officer somewhere or leaves for whatever reason. And we do have somebody leaving, but we've already backfilled her position. She is leaving to be a police officer in Fitchburg. So we've already backfilled. We offered somebody the job, and he's going to start training. She's going to be gone in about a month, and she does a good job, and she's going to do a great job as a police officer as well. Unfortunately, it's in Fitchburg, not in Clinton. So, but we wish her luck in her career. But we are fully staffed, and I think everybody's getting along and doing a great job over there. And he's really bringing the standards up already. Just in the last couple months that he's been there, he's doing a great job, and they're doing a great job. We're talking about, he's already looking at and contacted some CAD RMS providers, some computer-aided dispatch, record management supervisors. We've already had money allocated from the town, and for various reasons, I've been to demos myself with the previous dispatch supervisor, and that just kind of fell through, and then the pandemic hit. But we're ramping that back up again to get that money used and update our systems. He put in for a grant too, Dan, just last week for a state IT grant, and with the help of Mr. Ward, we logged into the system and he got all the information in. So some of that, he'd like to upgrade our emergency medical dispatch, and that would go along and it would kind of work with the CAD system and kind of make, instead of doing two different systems, it would kind of integrate into one. So that's something we're trying to get some money out of that, which would go along with the money that we already have allocated. And we might as well, if we can upgrade our system as much as we can all at once, that'd be great. So we're trying to do that and looking for any way we can to make it better in there. We've got a grant last year for mobile data terminals, laptops inside the cruisers, and a lot of the new CAT systems that we're looking at will really work well with the mobile. They have mobile versions. We don't really have the system we're using now isn't very mobile, and a lot of the young officers really rely on and like those onboard computers. Yeah. Where some of the older officers, we used to say is a coffee holder, but the younger guys really, they get in, they log right in, and they utilize it to get information and stuff. So a new upgraded CAD system will work well with that, with those new computers too as well. So that's something we're working on. I had one vendor call me, and I told him maybe the first of the year we'll get back to him, and Dan is talking to some vendors. Neshoba Regional's changing their CAD system. They're upgrading, so that might benefit us to look at what they're using, because a lot of surrounding towns are over at Neshoba that get dispatched out of there, Bolton and Berlin and Lancaster. So he's looking at that. He's actually going to go to a demo when they go to Neshoba the next couple of weeks. So we're doing good in the dispatch center right now. We're doing great. Equipment, we're always looking at what we can do to upgrade our equipment. I'm looking at some grants, trying to utilize that, trying to figure out, again, talking to Mr. Ward, there's some money from the federal government right now. I don't know how to use it or what to use it on right now, but maybe we could utilize that. Or there's always grants through the DOJ and everything too that we really need to get more aggressive about in utilizing, save the town some money and get us some tools. I put in that we looked at some less lethal alternative tools. We went to a demonstration, it's called the Bowler Wrap, and you guys would find it pretty interesting. If you YouTube it, it shoots a rope out and wraps around people. And I think we would have I really do think we would have a use for it. We'd have to figure out the funding for it and everything. But it's a less lethal, it's a temporary restraint device. It's basically on the use of force continuums right around where handcuffs are. And the MPTC is still doing work to really acknowledge it, but they did a demo down at the Chiefs, and I went out to Berlin PD last week. They did a demonstration. And I think it'd be some people in crisis maybe. You know, it's not a pain compliance, there's no pain involved. It literally wraps a rope around you, a 7-foot rope, Kevlar fiber, and it's got little hooks on the end that don't really penetrate you, but just catch your clothes enough. So we're looking at that. We're looking at any alternatives, anything new that comes in that we can, you know, people in crisis, we certainly don't want to, pain compliance, we don't want to use it. We just want to de-escalate the situation as best we can. And maybe a device like that might help us. We're always looking at new equipment and looking at what's out there, what's the best, and what's affordable, and what's out there that we could use for our community to serve our constituents better. Looking at grants, ongoing assessment, equipment and tools, we're always doing that. We're always looking at our equipment needs and what we need to do. Community outreach, this Saturday we have a DEA drug take-back day, and I kind of try to expand upon that, and I asked the detectives that do the narcotics enforcement if they could be involved in that. We have some officers that are trained as recovery coaches, and we got a lot of positive feedback there. They seem very excited to be involved, and they put together a program. Hopefully we'll get some people to show up. I know we usually get people, a lot of people utilize, we have a drug drop box. If anybody's watching, put it out there. It's 24/7. It's always there, and people do utilize it because it gets full, and we got to go and empty it, and then we bring it to a place to be destroyed and disposed of. But so the drug take back day is national, and everybody, the DEA collects it and disposes of it, and we always have it. But I thought it would be a great opportunity to put the two together. And hopefully we get some people show up, ask some questions. I talked to Joe Lefebvre, who works with the Drug Enforcement Unit with Sergeant Detective Martinez, and they both do an excellent job there. And he was telling me he's got some demonstrations and some things to show parents what to look for in their houses, and some of the pills that are out there, and some of the things that parents or people would ask about or would need to know and look for if they were concerned about changes in behavior and some other things in their kids. And some things we take for granted, just having the conversation with them, we take for granted as police officers. Oh, all parents know that, but they don't, you know? A lot of things we just kind of assume, you know, and it's good to get that information out there to all the parents to know if there's a little baggie or sandwich bags or a lot of different things they can look for. Sure. And those guys will be available on Saturday to do that from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So I'd like to expand on things like that. We've done some things in the school and things in the past. Sometimes they aren't always well attended, but I just said to Joe, maybe this is the first time and we really we were only like a month out or 3 weeks out. Maybe next year it'll be even bigger. If we can get a couple people, if we get one person to get the information and use it and utilize it and help somebody, then we did what we were supposed to do. And maybe next year we'll have more people show up and make it a bigger event. So that's where we're at Saturday. We have 2 officers. Officer Jim McNamara works with Farthers at the school, and that's taking some youth at the middle school. I don't know if Mr. Kobus knows about the program, and they do a lot with the kids. Every Wednesday afternoon, he's talking about taking them out to the apple orchard next week, and they've taken them to the BC basketball game and to the War Museum over in Hudson. They do a lot of things with them over at the gym, and they do a lot of things at the school with them too. This year they've expanded the program as well, and they're including girls at the middle school. And I believe Mrs. Bailey is involved with the program over there for the girls' side. So we have 2 officers. Officer McNamara is there every week, and he's trying to recruit some officers to help out. And schedule-wise, it's tough, so Officer Frick has helped out, Officer Cornelius has helped out. He's trying to get some of the younger officers to be involved in the program as well. And on the girls' side, we have a dispatcher that does a really good job. She just graduated from Assumption College. She was on the track team. She's a thrower, Emily Casella, and she's going to work with the girls on the girls' side. So she's pretty excited when we asked her if she wanted to be involved in that program, so I think she'd be really good. I think she really relate to them being young, right out of college and everything. I think she really relate well. She scored 1,000 points in basketball in high school too. She could play hoops against them, show them some hoops. That's about it. A lot of new ideas. We have that staff meeting I had was great. We have a lot of ideas like we've never done and we've talked about a youth academy in the summer, maybe a citizens academy for adults in the wintertime, and that's stuff that definitely moving forward I'd like to do. And we have officers who showed a lot of interest, very excited about possibilities, about things like that. I think those would be great programs to get people involved in, to show them what we do as police officers here in the community and why we do some things and answer some questions. I've seen over on social media, there's a lot of, Marlboro has it, a lot of surrounding communities have summer-type programs, and just figure out how we could implement it and what we do. But that's something I put stay tuned, because I definitely think once we get everybody in place and get everybody going, that's something we're going to be moving forward on. Everybody's got the great idea, and then it kind of goes down, but we got to get people to commit and get people going on it and put somebody in charge and set some dates, and then people will stay with it, and we'll get it going for next summer and do something over the winter time too, hopefully. But guys are excited. The officers like being involved. They love being involved in stuff like that. Most of the officers, they all grew up in town. They're all part of the community, you know. They all like doing what they do. And anything extra like that, they love to be involved with. And we keep it working. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm sorry it's not a formal report. It's just kind of some bullet
I was going to say, if this is bullet points, then yeah, I think we're in very good shape.
I know. It's fantastic.
No, this has been more than terrific. I know Mr. Kobus had a couple of questions that are on the agenda. If you want to lead out with those, Matt.
Sure. So I had contacted Chief Coyne sometime last week about the possibility of a door-to-door do not solicit list. I know that with, there's different groups that come around, to advertise their business. And, I just started thinking about a possibility for the residents in town of maybe they don't want those types of solicitations. I see signs on people's doors, do not solicit. Chief Coyne came back with a few things, if you want to expand on it.
No, I think, I didn't even think of that. It's a great idea. And looking online and looking at some things, and I asked, because I was away this week, I had looked it up when you told me, and I found something, but I had Acting Lieutenant Nelson look it up, and he did a great job. City of Marlboro, Rutland, Bellingham, a number of communities just in our area. Avon's not really in our area, but Haverhill, a lot of communities have it. It's called a do not knock list. And what he's found with his research, though, he said, Chief, what I found to be common in all the communities is that they have either a city ordinance or a bylaw establishing the do not knock registry, and it outlines the penalties for violating it. So that's something that if we could get on, would we have to get on the town meeting?
Yep.
In 2015, we did amend and put in some regulations for solicitors, and I just reviewed it today when I get back from training, and it says that anybody with posting on the door, but it doesn't mention anything about establishing a list or anything else. In most of the communities, all they do is they put it on their website and people can fill out a form electronically, or there's a form, just a simple form where you put your, this is the city of Marlborough, where you put your name and address and phone number, and it just gives a little bit about the law. And the law says you can solicit for political reasons, you can solicit for religious reasons, or anything about questions or articles or political. So you just, anything that's commercial, they would have to check in. We can't regulate anybody that's doing anything. Sometimes we ask if people, we get a call and we say, if you check in, we can't stop you, but at least it lets us know that you're out there.
Yeah.
If there's some religious people going around or whatnot. So it sounds like with the bylaw, or change to the existing one, to put some wording in that says a do not knock registry, and put some something for the violation. You know, pull their permit or whatever the wording would be on that. And I could certainly research it more. I just got the packet from the acting lieutenant, and he gave me all kinds of stuff from all these different communities, and they're really all very simple with the form. Just fill out your name and put it in the registry. And what I would do, if you guys are in agreement, is the dispatch center could compile those and keep the list up to date, and then because when they come in and check in the police station, we could have it so they could print it off right on the computer and say, don't go to these addresses right here. This is the most up-to-date no-knock list that we have.
I think it would be, number one, not looking to add any additional,
That was my question. Like, if there's a cost, like, I don't want to jump in
No,
here,
so
but like-
not so it's so it's not an arduous process,
Yeah.
right? Something, Chief Coyne had said that they've had a great understanding between many of the organizations that are coming in. So, the idea of changing the bylaw is a good idea. It might not be something we need to do, right at this moment, but just trying to kind of start implementing that process so when they come, they're aware. And then if there's excessive complaints being made by people that are on the list, then we can kind of work on that from there. But
So are we good waiting for annual and just preparing it as far as something for the warrant then, or I guess, or next meeting, we'll put it with the sidewalks, and next available meeting, we could put an amendment?
I don't know, is this something that we would need, would we need town approval to create the list, or just the town approval to amend the bylaw?
Yeah, I think the first thing we should do is probably, the town administrator, myself, can work with the chief, and we can look at the current bylaw, I think, what did you say, Chief, was that 2015?
2015, yeah. The wording is, shall not engage in solicitation upon premises. Such premises is posted against such solicitation by means of a notice prominently displayed upon which is printed the legend, no solicitors, or words similar to that effect.
Yeah, so we can take a look at that, come up with some recommendations, the chief's input on changes. It's up to the board.
I could certainly provide the board and Mr. Gibbons with some wording from similar communities in the area and how they word it.
And I think even just the process of registering something that is very simple, if it can be done electronically, or as, you know, as a last resort, maybe in person, but, you know, figuring out the logistics of that down the road, so that way it doesn't add a burden to any operation.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I just don't want you guys to have to be shelling
No,
out
no,
copies.
we could do a public information campaign as soon as the bylaw goes into effect, and we let people know that the registry is there, that you can sign up, have it on the town website, have it on the police department website. We could have the forms at the station, the lobby as well. So it wouldn't really be much.
Great.
I think it's a good idea.
Terrific.
I like it.
Michael, what's the best next step to make sure we're ready next time there's a special or an annual town meeting? Like just to request similar amendments, similar bylaws, and figure out how we can dovetail that into what we have from
Right,
2015?
if the board, exactly. If the board wants to approve to go forward with an article for town meeting, then we can work with town council to have it ready for whenever the next town meeting is. Yeah.
Do you want a motion tonight? Would that,
Sure.
that help?
I'll make a motion to create and accept a draft that's approved by town administrator, chief, and town solicitor for a do not knock list.
Second?
Motion made, second, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. You want to take the next one?
All right, so the next thing that I had reached out to the chair about was vehicles that are parking on the sidewalks. You know, living on the acre, I drive up and down Chestnut Hill daily, and the vehicles that are parked on the side are definitely creating a safety threat. I'm constantly seeing people having to walk in oncoming traffic to get around the vehicles that are there. You know, coming down the hill, it's very difficult to see any vehicles that are backing out of their driveway. And it's only a matter of time before it's going to create, someone's going to get hurt. And I know that with the existing administrative bylaws, there is a no parking article that's in there. And something has to be done as far as communicating, whether it's to the landlords or to the tenants, but that can't be, you know, I feel like it needs to be addressed. I don't want to see anybody get hurt, literally seeing strollers being walked into the road to get around the vehicle. That's not a parking spot. It was never meant to be a parking spot. There's plenty of vehicles up there that park off the street, but I just wanted to kind of get that out there and kind of figure out what we can do.
We can certainly increase the enforcement. We try to be as reasonable as possible, you know what I mean? We understand that, you know, we don't make a lot of friends writing tickets, but at the same time, it is a safety issue and they need to. And I've had people come in over the years, where am I supposed to park? I said, well, who collects your rent? Your landlord. It's kind of a situation you guys have to work with. If he's going to rent out 3 stories in a house that was formerly a one-family, he has to figure out some parking for you guys. So, but you told me Chestnut, yeah, I sent the officer down there yesterday and we got those. Those are clear violations and there's spots behind. People get lazy. And we gotta do better with the enforcement, and we can certainly do that especially in areas like Chestnut or some other areas of town where there's a lot of pedestrian traffic coming up and down. And it's a busy road. You don't want people walking around the road on Chestnut or some other streets. We've got calls from Green Street in the past. We've sent guys down enforcing. But we gotta be more proactive. We can't just wait for people to call. We'll get on that for sure. And we understand it's an old town too, with some single families that were converted into multifamilies, so sometimes it's tough for people. So we do the best we can with that, but we don't want to be zero tolerance. I mean, if you guys want us to do that, I think there's some reasonableness too, and the officers try to find a happy medium, but I think educating people and telling them, the landlords, that have a responsibility to make sure they have a parking spot too, one way or another. But we do need to get them off when they're on
You know, and just to be clear, when I had requested this be on the agenda, it wasn't necessarily to put it on the police department to address
Yeah.
it.
No,
This was
we've
more
reviewed this here.
of a discussion on, you know, there's a bylaw, you know, we had just talked about this at the last bylaw committee. There's bylaws that are on there. Are we going to enforce them, or do we need to reevaluate them and possibly look to modify or remove them altogether? But in no way am I saying like this is something that the police department was supposed to be doing.
No,
that
my
hasn't.
apologies. I knew
So-
the chief was going to be here. I figured I'd involve him in the discussion because ultimately we're going to, you know, and we've had this discussion, and when I say we, it's the board thing, you know, since I've been here, and it's, you know, I've heard, well, we have to make sure people are educated. We can't just spring this on them before the winter time, and then another winter comes. And, you know, I've softened my stance a little bit, but only because I know it's not easy, and there's a lot of things to get to, and I know your department has a lot of other things. But in the same way, like Matt's saying, and I've heard from other people, and I see firsthand, you know, these sidewalks, the same reason we ask people to shovel them is that, you know, there's a mom pushing a stroller who has to walk to Hannaford to get food, or a senior citizen. People are treating them like luxuries, where we don't realize some people, they're necessities. And if you're parking on them or not shoveling them, you're taking away, you know, a person's freedom to go where they should be in this town. And so we want to just figure out a way where this all works for everybody. I'm not looking to deny anybody some place to park, but if you're parking on a sidewalk, that's not a parking spot.
No, absolutely. What we used to do when we had the parking ban, that was November to April, we would go and just take pink or yellow warning that we would print on the photocopy and just blanket the town. And it worked, you know. We would just, winter's here, you know, we're going to give you these for a week or so, and then you're going to get tickets, you know, and it works. So maybe we'll get some guys together, get a major campaign, just start blanketing the town and give them some warnings, and then if the cars are still there, they'll get a violation ticket.
Yeah, I mean, I understand not everybody watches these meetings as much as I'm sure we have great ratings, but and to us, you know, we hear about it all the time, but anything, I'm open to any ideas. If there's something, a very simple way we can just say, hey, you know, this isn't cool, and try something else. Like, listen, I'm open to anything. So,
you know, and I think that, you know, when you look at the bigger picture of, you know, the planning board, you know, in the parking restrictions that may be in existence, and like Chief Coyne had said, homes that have been converted from single family into multifamily, mathematically or logistically, it makes sense that you can fit 6 cars in a particular parking lot, but the reality is that's not how they park. And then they start using the sides of the streets, so it's being, you know, sometimes it can be advertised as one thing, and then it becomes a burden.
There's 6 parking spots, but the 5 other cars need to leave to let you out, you know. That's not going to work.
You know, so I think that's where, in looking at the whole picture of this issue, and it's no different than on North High Street, where you have vehicles that park on the side of the road, and I can't imagine that you know, it's just not safe. It's, you know, and if they don't have somewhere to park, then, you know, open the dialogue up with the landlord or the homeowners to discuss options, but to have a car parked on the side of the street there, so vehicles now have to pass around it, getting into the other lane, you know, at what point does it become a liability for the town, you know, if we continue to let it happen?
I understand. What I might say has, sadly, being the sage of this board, this is going to be it's a never-ending process. So I appreciate the chief's counsel and the new ideas. Yeah, if there's a way we can, like I said, anything we can do to chip away at it. There's always going to be people who won't do it, but if we could cross off the people who didn't know, and, you know, just by doing something easy like, you know, papering and saying, hey, you know, winter's coming. You send something out in the water bills, but if it comes from you guys, it means a little more.
No, absolutely. And some people just get lazy. They're just an easier spot.
That's exactly right.
It's closer to the front door, you know, but absolutely, we can do that.
Yeah, I do think it is an education, and like you said, like with the water bills, we talked with Mr. Ward about, you know, some additional information with like our tax bills, just another form of, you know, education for people. You know, that tax bill might be going to the landlord, but if we phrase it properly, yeah, maybe that's a good tool that we can use for a lot of different things, maybe including in this one as well. So I do think it is more of like a long ball approach, you know, versus ticketing everyone. But I think, like you said, if you've had success with just educating them up front, that, you know, it certainly is one. I think if there's no like snowstorm and whatnot, you know.
Yeah, no, the warnings are a little nudge to people to remind them that what they're doing isn't right.
And I think too, until Mr. Kovas brought it up, like I wasn't aware of the bylaw. And so, you know, so I think a lot of it is just, you know, sometimes people just don't recognize it being a problem. Yeah. But I think we've all had to swerve into the road at one point to avoid a car.
We did in the past is with the warning, kind of with the little blurb about the bylaw, about winter parking. So we could put the bylaw right on. We'd take a piece of paper and slice it in half and put them on the windshields all over town. Remind people the winter's coming and this is the bylaw. You can't park on the street during from November to April. So we could do something like that.
Yeah, I think it's like a multi-pronged approach to it. Yeah, for sure.
The wording of the sidewalk bylaw.
Let the item know.
And the sidewalk not being an option because you can't park in the street. Don't park your car on the sidewalk, you know.
Yeah. And it's an issue a lot with, I bring up the 3 families and stuff because that seems to be more an issue. A lot of single families have the driveway and the parking, so it isn't as much of an issue. And sometimes the tenants will come to us, and that's kind of always been my answer: is you really need to work with the landlord. The landlord collects the rent, he rents the building, and he should accommodate that you have parking.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chair. Chief Coyne, thanks for putting this together. This was great. Just one thing I just want to talk to you about briefly under community outreach. If we could just talk briefly about High Street parking enforcement. In my opinion, going business to business, they seem to be the best people that understand if people are parking where they're not supposed to be.
Yes.
The business owner usually is the one that knows about it because they're the one complaining about it. Do you think would we have the bandwidth to possibly either have an officer or maybe split it over like a couple different officers where they would be like, they would be dedicated to being like a direct outreach to those business owners and maybe set up some sort of a dedicated extension at the police department or an email address or something, some sort of, so that the complaints, you know, instead of just going to the main dispatch, they could go to like maybe 1 or 2 younger police officers.
No, exactly. No, absolutely. When the lieutenants and sergeants are kind of put in positions, we'll figure out who the day shift sergeant will be at that time. Maybe that would be a good person because the officers sometimes change, and depending upon staffing, they could be assigned to a different section of town, but the day shift sergeant would kind of remain the same. So that's a good idea. Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
We'll figure out who's going to be in that role and kind of assign them. The officers have been down, and the parking hasn't been too bad, I don't think, since the revitalization. I think that there's been some empty spots and stuff from what the officers are telling me, from what I've seen on my own. But I think that's a good idea. I'm open to that. Absolutely. Okay. And I think the day shift sergeant would be a good start on that.
Yeah, we'll see it. Discover Clinton has a lot of contact with the businesses too.
Yep.
So I can bring it up at their meeting because, you know, maybe it isn't as big of an issue as it was in the past, but I know a couple of years ago when I was just campaigning to run for selectman and go into the businesses, I know there was it was a pretty common complaint. The business owners knew, you know, that these spots were usually being filled by people they know aren't customers or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll discuss it with Discover Clinton and we'll
that's a good idea. We could definitely do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
I think too with the, now that the revitalization is over, it does look to be, there is more signage down there. So kind of back to the whole education part, even when I was down there the other day, I'm like, oh, we have more signs. So not to say the sign is going to correct everything, but you know, if
Helps.
people, you know, I think hopefully between, like I said, multi-pronged approach, it'll all kind of row in the same direction.
Any other questions or comments for the chief? Yeah, like I said, if this was throwing it together the last minute, then I'm very confident in our decision to hire you as our new chief. I'm thrilled to see you're hitting the ground running.
It was all in
So
my
great.
head. I put it on paper over the last couple of days.
Very-
Well,
The best of luck, Chief.
keep up the
Yeah,
great work. If
thank
you need
you.
anything from
No.
us, please let us know.
No, but I appreciate it. Working with Mr. Ward, we're moving forward here, and things will be changing. It's constant change, which is good, which I'm excited about, and
We are too.
excited where we're going with the department.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, chief.
We are working off the 2020 federal census, which is, the town clerk is recommending adoption of revisions to the Clinton precinct map based on population changes from that census. The streets of Auburn, Centennial, Elm, and parts of Water Street would move from precinct 2 to precinct 1, and our board has to approve this new map. Are there any questions, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the suggestion of the town clerk to change the redistricting.
I'll second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. The only matter in administrative business was a one-day liquor license request that has been withdrawn, so we'll move past that onto old and new business. Main Street Automotive would like to change the ownership of their Class 2 vehicle dealer's license from individual, Bob Bayless, to a corporation, Main Street Automotive Service, Inc. Bob Bayless will still be owner, operating the business located at 676 Main Street in Clinton. There's a letter in the packet.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to accept or approve the name transfer as requested.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All's in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Chief Assessor David Baird is requesting a reserve fund transfer in an amount of not to exceed $13,000 for office coverage while he is on inspections due to a member of the staff out on leave from January 2022 to March of 2022. There's a transfer form in the packet. It's a pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we accept the request from the assessor's office.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. The Bylaw Review Subcommittee is requesting that each department with a designated section in the administrative bylaws take an opportunity to review their duties and provide any input to the committee for consideration. I know there was an email from town council, and the bylaws are also in the package. I don't know if, I didn't have a problem with what's in there now, but how would you like to receive input or discuss?
I mean, if anybody wants to review the bylaws that are there, and then maybe the next meeting, if there's any suggestions or requests.
That's homework. Bylaws. Thank you. Similarly, the Government Affairs Subcommittee met recently and came together, put together a draft job description for the upcoming Assistant Town Administrator job. That was a late addition to your packet, so if you want to take a look at that, again, it's going to go to the Personnel Board for approval and slotting, it's with HR now. So if you guys want to take a look at that and see if there's anything else that pops up, we based it on comparable towns and things that we've talked about in the past, but if there's anything we missed, please let us know.
Now,
Questions?
do you want that, are we reviewing that for the next meeting, or are we approving that? Are we looking to approve that today?
No, I mean, it's still very much a draft, and I think we're going to have to, when does personnel meet again? It's the first Monday, third?
Second Monday of November.
All right, so we've got,
So by
we'll
the
be able
next,
to approve it at our next meeting.
Yeah.
If, and even then, approval's kind of a slippery thing because they're going to have to sign off on it, and we'll see which one comes first. But if you could have changes to us by the next meeting, that way we could get them our thoughts and we'll see what they come back with, if that works.
Personnel board. Yeah.
Ed, am I right?
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
Yep.
What is, so it goes to the personnel board and then it goes to HR?
Sorry, one more time.
Sorry, it goes, we will review it, come back to the meeting, approve it, goes to the personnel board it then goes to,
The very fluid plan right now is we'll get this board's recommendations
Yeah.
to personnel. We'll do that on the first Wednesday. The second Monday, they'll have our changes. We'll get it back from them, hopefully somewhat intact, and then it'll be ready to post.
I mean, I think we could send it in parallel to the personnel board and have us provide feedback on it, so they can get it sooner, and then we can take everyone's feedback and send it out again.
Great.
I mean, I don't think we have to wait to send it to the personnel board.
Okay. So we're going to send them a draft so they know what's coming, and as soon as, we can update something or approve something at our next meeting, and, assuming it's nothing seismic, they'll be able to take a look at it at their next meeting. We'd love to get them something to look at
Oh, sure.
before they have to vote.
yeah.
Yes.
So, once our board approves it and it goes to the personnel board, if there's anything in there that that is requested to be removed, or does that come back here, or is that they just work within their board to address that?
Yeah, I think the personnel board is the final arbitrator of the job description. I mean, they're not trying to invent the wheel. They want to take the input from the departments. They're just really putting it into a legal form to make sure it's consistent with the other duties. But any job description in classification, creation, and job description classification of new positions are under the purview of the personnel board. So, but I think they'll be looking to the selectmen to draft the major points. So I don't think they're looking to change around what you want. It's just really putting it in the proper format is all that they'll be doing.
Is there a possibility of reaching out to the personnel board and maybe seeing if they could have a meeting prior to their monthly meeting, only for the purpose of expediting this, because we're going to be heading into the holidays, and I think that's just going to tack on extra time to the whole process. So at least if they can get that after our meeting, if they're able to meet, if there's anything that they want to revise.
Third, Mr. Chairman.
We're meeting on the 3rd, they're meeting on the 8th. It's my sincere hope to be at that 8th meeting.
Okay.
To kind of head off any problems at the pass, so we don't have to, I mean, my sincere hope is that we come out of the 8th with something we can post. If they think they need to take longer, then yes, I would urge them to meet again before Thanksgiving.
And we could work with our HR director to set up some sort of a share, like a Google share document, to get feedback in real time from everybody, so they can start reviewing it within the next week or whenever when we send
Right.
it.
I don't think we're going to be the holdup here. I just don't know how long they take to move things along. I guess if they stuck to their schedule, we'd have something the 6th from them of December, and then we'd post it before Christmas. But yeah, I mean, I agree. It's a busy time for everybody.
I mean, if there's something on the 8th, if they're not able to come to an agreement on the 8th, I would request that they meet that fall, even if it's the following week, to get this posted before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to ask.
Sorry, I missed that.
I just said it doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah,
If we get to I think over email and feedback from everyone, I think we can get 90% of the way there, and then hopefully at their next meeting, we can approve something. But if there's still some aspects of the job description that require more discussion, then yeah, I would hope that they would work with us to meet a little bit earlier than waiting until the
especially
second
since
Monday in
November's
December.
a 5-Monday month too, so we lose a week there. Sure, I will, if it's okay with the board, we will, as I've told the town administrator and the HR director, we'd love to get something to them as soon as possible. So if you guys want to speed up your input, we'll get them as soon as we have thoughts from everyone. We'll get that to the personnel board sooner rather than later, and stress to them the urgency of turning this around quickly. I will do my best to be at that meeting on the 8th and update the board accordingly as far as next steps. But I hear what you're saying, and I concur. Anything else on that? Hearing nothing. We have a bit of a aligning of the planets as far as collective bargaining this year, where all union contracts are up on June 30th of next year. Police, fire, DPW, facilities, dispatchers, teachers, instructional assistants, and school clerical staff. I know Mr. Kobus was looking for an update on things. It's my understanding that they come to us as far as coming to the table, since if the contracts expire, we just roll over what we have. Is that correct?
Right.
Is there
All the
traditional-
contracts, all the contracts have evergreen clauses in them, so they continue on. They don't get a raise or they don't get any monetary upgrades, but the contract will still remain in place. So historically, is generally the unions approach the town to bargain, because most of the time it's over wages and work performance or schedule. So, but it doesn't mean we can't be the ones to approach them. It's just that we can't force them to come to the table until they're ready, So, but certainly if the board wanted us to send out letters and say the town has ready, we've offered to sit down with you, and then the ball's in their court. But generally what we will do is we'll work with department head and try to come up with proposals for the Board of Selectmen to review, and the board can give any input on proposals as well too. So we're not going to put forward any proposals until they're approved by the Board of Selectmen. So department head will come up with some recommendations, legal counsel comes up with some recommendations, and then the board members can have their recommendations so we can finalize the proposal. So that we can definitely get started on right now. And then we could send letters to the unions asking to sit down and hopefully start the process, as soon as we can. But again, it's a two-way street, so we need everybody's buy-in in order to do that. So,
what I'm wondering from our standpoint, if we're able to look at the current contract as a board, whether it's done in the executive session, I'm not exactly sure, but are there things that we're able to discuss that we would like to see from the town side, so then when the discussions do begin, we're able to kind of jump that way?
Sure. Yeah, any of the proposal formulation would be done in executive session, because we're trying to, develop a strategy of how you want to put forward all these issues. So certainly, if the board members want to get copies of the contract, start reviewing them, and if you feel you'd be ready for the next meeting to have a session to sit down and start talking about that, we certainly can make that happen. Yeah.
So as far as the board, right, we'll have fire, facilities, police, and DPW, because on the school department will handle
We could have facilities.
the other
Dispatchers.
Right.
Dispatchers.
And dispatch, right,
So-
exactly. So there are 4 on the town side, I'm sorry, 5 now with dispatchers, right, as the chair
Dispatchers,
indicated. So police, fire, DPW, facilities, dispatch. The school has 3. We're not involved in any of theirs. However, the chair of the board does have representation to sit on the bargaining sessions for the school contracts, and those would be teachers, instructional assistants, and then their clerical staff. There are 3 unions over on the school side, so that makes the 8.
Yeah, we've always got a lot of work ahead of us, so if members of the board want to take a look at the contracts and start coming up with ideas, knowing that, the department heads are going to have ideas too.
Yep.
I don't see any reason we can't get started, at least planning on our side. So,
Right.
If that's something you can share with us, and then we'll, depending on how big a pie we have to eat here, like if we just do one or, we'll see what it looks like, and,
Yeah.
but before the next agenda's posted, we can figure out if we're gonna do, a general swipe at all 5, or take one at a time. We'll just see
Sure.
what we're up against.
Sure, if we have a session next meeting, then I can give you some feedback after discussing with department heads and see where we're at. And anything that we do, and if the board members have input, that's great, that's what we want to hear, because anything we do, it's with the support of the board, because it's ultimately, the board has to sign the contract, so we want to make sure that you have the information that you need, and that we're going forward with your direction, so, yep, so.
Right, for members who haven't been part of this before, just because we're not at the table doing this negotiation doesn't mean we don't have intimate knowledge of what's going on, and feedback and oversight on what offers are being made. It's a really neat process to watch. But yeah, we meet in executive session, hammer that stuff out. They go to the table and do the negotiation. So,
Right.
Yeah, I'm happy to get
Okay.
going on this.
Good.
So
Yeah,
if we
let
can
me
share
try
those
to-
things, and
We'll work on that for the next meeting.
some more homework. Great. Does that work? Yep. Okay. Any other old and new business? Committee reports. I'm going to jump in on, yes?
Well, if you gotta go too, I was just gonna, if the evaluation subcommittee is planning on meeting this coming Tuesday.
Yep.
We're still waiting for confirmation, but yeah.
Great. I'll slide in on, not to step on surplus properties, but we did get some good news this past week where we were awarded $1,100,000 in fiscal 22 Community One-Stop Grant money, which is going to help with cleanup of the brownfield at the site of Gene Auto, which was something we've been looking for to help with the idea that if we clean that up, it's going to be a lot more marketable to potential developers. So that's a nice step forward there. So we'll be able to pay for that and then hopefully move that along in one way or another. So,
While we're speaking of surplus property, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Myers from the school department, they want to keep the fire station. I spoke with him today. They're evaluating it.
I look forward to hearing what they come up with.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, if they're serious about renovating it to create offices, then it's still under their purview. But if they're not, and this is what we'll hopefully, I'll visit the school committee in the next couple of meetings. We're waiting to hear back from the planning board and the zoning board on what can go at the fire station if it were to be sold. And yeah, so that's what we'll discuss that with them. If they feel strongly that that's a direction that they're going to go in, then it's still theirs to do with as they please. But if they're not sure of that, then we would encourage them to give it back, to put it under the umbrella of the town, so we can include it as one of our assets while we're trying to be strategic.
Okay, to be continued. Any other committee reports?
I don't want to harp on this, but just again, if it totally defeats the purpose to wear a mask in here, if when you come to address the board, the one time you're talking, that's where you would want the mask on. So, I don't want to harp on it too much, but if we're wearing masks, you should still keep your mask on when you're addressing the board.
Point taken. Anything else? Hearing none, our next meeting will be on November 3rd. I'll accept a motion to
Chairman, I'll make a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all's in favor? Aye. Opposed, 5-0. Thank you, good night.